Welcome to the Backlash of Backlash.com. My name is Rod Van Mecklin, and in this video I'm going to comment briefly on Aaron Clarey's book, Enjoy the Decline. A day or so ago, while listening to one of Bern Chapin's excellent videos, he indicated that in Enjoy the Decline, Aaron Clarey advocates committing suicide. Now, I haven't read the book yet. I do intend to buy it and read it. But I can understand why he would suggest something like that. If the looters take over the world and leave no place for men and women of the mind to live free, then why not die? Why not deprive them of our virtues and remove ourselves from their parasitical control? While I cannot say what I might do if driven past my limits, I think of Ayn Rand's character John Galt, who worked at a nothing job, lived a minimalist life, and expressed the best of himself in a place where the looters could not reach. He enjoyed his life. I will tell you that there are toxic, narcissistic personalities in my life who, like emotional vampires, prey on me, and before I understood what they are, what they do, and what they need from me, I very often suffered long bouts of depression. And I've been diagnosed with clinical depression. Most of the time, depression starts with something external, but it can turn into a physical thing, especially if the external factors begin at a very early age. Chronic stress actually damages the amygdala and hippocampus by triggering the chronic release of cortisol. This causes many memory problems, and it just wears you down and leaves you vulnerable to bouts of despair. I still have depression, but rarely despair anymore because I take amino acids that counter that, and I just know how to, well, stop the negative thoughts and just let the negative emotions run their course, which they inevitably do. In addition, I limit my exposure to the emotional vampires, and thanks to some of Bern Chapin's videos, in which he read from a book about narcissistic personalities, I have learned how to deal with them. But enough about depression and narcissistic personalities for the time being. This video is supposed to be about the exciting subject of suicide. 25 years ago, the first death to be announced on the internet was a fellow named Alan Wells. Alan was a friend of mine. We worked together at Microsoft, and he killed himself. He threw himself off of the Snoqualmie Falls in Washington State because his violent ex-wife in New Hampshire had obtained a warrant to have him extradited to New Hampshire and imprisoned, despite that even her friends testified that she was violent, that she had attacked and injured Alan, and that she was, and she injured him with a knife, by the way, and that she was abusing their son. She had custody. Such is the insanity of the family courts. The court had decreed that Alan, who was a programmer at Microsoft, was to pay most of his wages to her as child support. So despite his good salary, he struggled, and he fell behind. This is how she got the warrant for his arrest. Alan refused to be a slave and took his own life. But what if he had lived? Alan and I were about the same age. I'm 62. We were both active on the predecessor to the news groups that in those days were called Usenet. That was before there was the World Wide Web and the news groups and people could go and post stuff. But it's kind of like free-for-all blogging, I guess. He was one of the most thoughtful, rational men I've ever known. I'm sure that Alan would have become active in the men's rights movement, and eventually he would have become MGTOW. Had he held on today, he might be a national figure and a hero. About 10 years ago, another friend, a friend and former lover, took her life. She felt that her problems were insurmountable and took her own life. But what if she had lived? Let me tell you about her. She grew up. Her mother worked on the original Star Trek series. She sat in Gene Roddenberry's lap. I think she said that she was 7 years old, and she would sit in his lap while he worked on stuff. And she loved science fiction. She loved Star Trek. And she is missing out on so much great science fiction today. I'm looking forward to watching Jupiter Ascending when it comes out on DVD. And yes, I know it's about a woman who is magically transported into this life of being an aristocrat and everything, you know, more feminist porn, but fantasy porn, but still great science fiction, great special effects, fun story. I don't care that it's a woman. I'm just looking forward to it, and I know that Candace would have too. And then, of course, a couple of years ago, my friend Earl Silverman hung himself. A lot of you knew him or knew about him, and that hit us hard. He was angry about the pervasive misandry in Alberta. And things are no better now than they were then. But what if he had lived? What difference might he have made had he held on just a few more years? And what difference might he have enjoyed? In another video, I talk about the immediate future of the global economy when the sovereign debt market starts to collapse, the bond market. It will erode many of the federal programs throughout the West, including Canada and here in the United States. Now, 4 or 5 years ago, I pointed out on A Voice for Men that unless something fundamental happens to resuscitate the economies, we will face an economic collapse that will eliminate most, if not all, of the government programs that replace men today. With those gone, the tide will turn and the misandry will ebb. What if Earl had lived to see that? The parasites will do their best to increase their hold on Western society. Their bought and paid for politicians keep trying to pass laws taking away our freedom on the net. The pharmaceutical giants spend billions to maintain control over our access to just information about how to heal and stay healthy. There's talk among politicians and bankers of eliminating cash and requiring us to use things like ATM cards, and making things like gold and silver illegal so they can exert total control over how we spend our wages. And governments throughout the West, including here in the United States, are preparing for widespread riots in the increasingly likely event that our economy breaks down. Now, that's not absolutely necessarily going to happen. You can see a link in the low bar below. Put a link to my video about Martin Armstrong's proposed solution. The government of the United States is unlikely to even listen to anything about that until things really start to get bad. But if they do it, they could cut the whole collapse short and recover the economy, and then of course bets would be off with respect to government programs going away. But assuming that they don't do anything, or that they just keep doing what they're doing and things keep getting worse and worse and worse, and then this coming October the bond market starts to collapse, and then we go into a 5-year period of economic turmoil and tumult, well, yeah, those things could go away. And when they do, things will change. But everywhere there is evidence that the world Aaron predicts in his book will happen is drawing nearer. But is that all there will be? Are we headed for a Hunger Games dystopia? A dystopia is a distinct possibility, and a time of tumult and turmoil in the very near future is almost certain. But beyond 2025, I think there will be something better, something that all of us would like to see if we endure. Artificial intelligence programs are already on the market to handle customer service call center jobs. Allison from IPsoft is probably the most advanced. Allison learns from listening to conversations, and at this time can fool people into thinking they are talking to a human being more than 80% of the time. Now, in my day job, I take a lot of calls from people who come in through our call center. They're frustrated. They've been on hold 20, 30 minutes just to get to the customer service. Then they have to wait another 10 minutes to get through to us. And what if instead of going through all of that, they called in, man, they talked to this artificial intelligence called Allison. It rings, gets picked up before the second ring. Hello, how are you? Who are you? Oh, what's your question? Here's the solution. Anything else? Thank you, goodbye. A minute or two. Who wouldn't want that? Call up to the cable company or to the internet company or any other customer service call center. Get things handled right away. That's not a bad thing. Yes, it will eliminate a lot of jobs, but that's creative destruction for you. Eliminate jobs here, create more jobs over there. And while financial analysts worry about the aging workforce and ask who will do jobs when boomers like me retire, and yeah, I'm 62, but sorry, Aaron, I don't think of myself as being almost dead. Now, a week ago, my mother died. She was 84, and I'm really sad about that. But when she was my age, and when my father, who is still alive, was my age, they were much more aged than I am. I have been a member of the Life Extension Foundation since 1982, off and on, but mostly on. And I've been following that information for a long time, and you can too. lef.org is their URL. Go there, read their articles. Their magazine is free and available on their website. Life-enhancement.com is another great website. They put their magazine online exclusively. And both of these organizations, Life Extension Foundation is nonprofit, Life Enhancement is profit, but both of them sell products, and I buy products from both of them. I'm a frequent shopper at Vitamin Shop too, and at 62, I hardly consider myself to be over the hill or even middle age. I expect to live a lot longer, barring injury or illness. Regenerative medicine is making rapid advances. At this time, at least 3 boys that I've read about have gotten brand new urethras that were grown from their own pluripotent stem cells that were created in a laboratory. I mean, they took their fat or something and they turned it into pluripotent stem cells. Really, that's how they do it. And I mean, I don't know the technology exactly, but they use fat cells. And they were able to grow brand new urethras for them. And within less than 10 years, you're going to be reading about and hearing about people getting brand new kidneys and brand new livers and brand new hearts and brand new aisles of Langerhans in the pancreas from their own cells. So no immunosuppressant drugs. They give a few cells, go into the laboratory a little while later. A new organ has been grown. Obviously, probably won't be replacing brains, although parts of the brain, it's possible. And within 20 years, our potential life expectancy is going to just start rapidly advancing into the hundreds of years. What is popularly but erroneously called cold fusion is happening right now. I can speculate, but I don't know for sure why the newspapers and mainstream media isn't just screaming about this from the rooftops. They should be. Andrea Rossi and Industrial Heat have been running a 1 megawatt power plant for almost a year that runs off of a few grams of nickel powder combined with lithium and hydrogen gas. And again, I expect that within 10 years, all other forms of power generation will be obsolete. And the fact that politicians like Barack Obama and Al Gore aren't making a lot of noise about this proves, in my opinion, that they don't really care about global warming and that climate change is a ruse to provide the means for exerting greater control over the rest of us. I could go on, but my point is that while there are things to worry about, there are also things we can look forward to. Today's problems are not insurmountable, and they will be solved. The major concern is our loss of liberty and the ever-increasing efforts of politicians and feminists to oppress and control men, but I don't expect that to last. While many women have passively enjoyed the advantages feminism has given them, millions of these same women have seen their fathers and brothers and husbands and sons hurt by the bigotry, and more are opposing the hate mongers every day. I don't consider myself a transhumanist. But I do expect that nanotechnology will help to expand our mind and extend our lives to the point where our IQs will rise far beyond what we can imagine today. The question I like to ask myself every now and then is, if my IQ were to rise to 1,000, how would my priorities change, and what activities would occupy my time? That is a distinct possibility for me and for you, something you want to think about. There will be days when the outlook is bleak, and you might consider committing suicide. But before you do, take a minute to look beyond the problems that are right in front of you to the possibilities that stretch out beyond them, and ask yourself, what if I live? Check out the other videos, subscribe to the channel. Oh, and maybe like the video if you would, please. For the Backlash at Backlash.com, my name is Rod Van Mechelen.